Hey, PKOSB. Good to see you, sister. Okie doke. All right. Hello, everybody. Before we get started, just as a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only, wherever you may be watching it, as well as all social media. Want to give a big hello to everyone over on Odysee, Rumble, and of course YouTube. Oh, and Twitch. So hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Good to see you all. So, got a good one for you tonight. So this is the Loosh files. This is the second episode, and I was kind of mixed on what to put this under. So I think Loosh files is probably the best one, but it's also involves a coma, an induced coma, and which results in a near-death experience. So it's really kind of a mix of everything. And I think you're really going to enjoy this. Some of the, I don't know if any of you happen to see the description, but, you know, I put a few quotes in there that we'll discuss, obviously, just a few of many. But needless to say, one of them is, quote, "Then they started to come at me one by one, sort of dart away, and they were taking my energy." And then later on in the interview, when referring to the energy, she was quoted saying, "Their sort of manipulation was not a bad thing." So the cognitive dissonance and the hypnotic pull into all this is clearly shown as well, not just probably during the experience, but as she is back here. And there's some interesting things about memory wiping and all that stuff too. The final quote that I put in there is, quote, "I felt like I already knew her," referring to her newborn daughter, "like we had met. This was not the first time." So really, really loaded. Hello, Jeff Fields. Flat Earth is True. Hotson and Jay Wears Socks to Bed. Over on Odysee, good to see you. Okay, so let's get rolling. And I think you're going to enjoy this one. So buckle up. Okay, if I could just get the damn thing figured out. Where'd it go? Always something, I tell you. Okay. Here we go.
My guest is Krista Gorman, who, due to suffering a cardiopulmonary arrest, had a near-death experience and came...
Oh, shout out to the Jeff Maher podcast for providing this great interview to us. Jeff's channel is awesome to go and check out for your own research. So sorry to interrupt it early, but got to give credit where credit's due. Jeff and Maher are doing a great job over there, providing loads of experiencer testimonies.
Came back a different person. Krista, thank you for joining me today and welcome.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me. Really happy to be here.
Krista, if you don't mind, let's just start on the day that it happened and go from there.
So I was pregnant with my daughter and I was in labor. It was an induced labor. This happened in July 2000. And it was about 13 hours after the induction for labor started. And I hadn't progressed very far. And my daughter was showing signs of distress. So the nurse midwife had to put an internal monitor on her scalp. And they literally have to screw the monitor into the scalp. And she must have reflexed. They say the infants don't feel it, but she must have kicked very hard.
Of course. Welcome to the world, right? Talk about a horrible way to come into the world, getting something crammed on, drilled in your head or whatever the heck's going on.
They say the infants don't feel it, but she must have kicked very hard and pushed amniotic fluid into my bloodstream. And all of a sudden, I started having difficulty breathing. And I turned to my mother, who was at the side of my bed, and I said, I'm feeling like I can't breathe. And the nurses just immediately jumped into action. And they yanked me on my left side. They put oxygen on my face. They had taken my mother and my now ex-husband out of there and started wheeling me out of the room. And just in those few seconds, I was having more and more trouble breathing, where I was it was like trying to suck air through a teeny tiny little straw. And in the hallway on the way to the operating room on the labor and delivery floor, I literally sucked in my last bit of air and everything just started to go dark. And as that started to happen, I could feel this peace, this just sense of peace come over me, almost as if from above and behind me. And the next moment of my awareness was of my vision looking down, being high above the body in this room, and watching as these black particles came racing up to where my vision was. And the particles were coming from the body, mainly in the center, like in the center of the chest, the abdomen, and some from the head. And I was this undulating cloud, this loose static cloud. And I was still Krista in my purest sense and pure consciousness. I still identified as I know myself, without all of the worldly sort of memories or attachments or understandings. I didn't know that was me down there. I didn't know it was a body. I didn't know what a body was, a human, nothing. And I just watched the events, and I saw my daughter when I later.
Okay, so what's interesting is there's this disconnect, right? And the reason why I'm going to stop it here is just to kind of, as we kind of move along, you'll see how the lack of memory is concerning, to say the least. But when we more commonly see this is in relation to comas. There's no doubt about it. And then sometimes the recall is insane. Or like with her, you're going to see how there isn't recall and then it all comes flooding back, right? Now, one thing I would suggest to everyone listening and to take into consideration is not don't lean too heavy on the drugs if you get a terminal diagnosis. And if there is some sort of coma situation, there's a difference between organically going into a coma versus being induced. That's kind of my rough outlook on it as of now. Now, that could change, but it does seem to make a difference in terms of recall. So, you know, I think having things like DNRs are important, you know, having that set up. So just wanted to throw that out there, you know, make of it what you will.
What a body was, a human, nothing. And I just watched the events, and I saw my daughter, what I later found out was my daughter being born and handed to somebody at my left. And I was watching, and I recall feeling curious, just this detached kind of, oh, that's very interesting. I wonder what's going on there. And then I floated around to the left side of my body, and I started to feel more and more curious. And as soon as that feeling started to grow, then I felt a tug to my left. Something wanted me to go that way, and I resisted. I wanted to know more about what was going on, and it pulled me a little harder. And I just said, okay, I'll go.
Okay, see that? Okay, I'll go. So something's trying to get her attention, get her to go away from herself and not make sovereign decisions. And, well, she agrees. Curiosity killed the cat, my friends. And I'm sure that's what's happened to, well, it's happened to all of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
I resisted. I wanted to know more about what was going on. And it pulled me a little harder. And I just said, okay, I'll go. And as soon as I let go of the resistance for leaving, I started to move very quickly out of there and through the wall. It had become, the wall was sort of like a fluid tan color. And I had seen the wallpaper strip on the top. And all of that was sort of fluidy. And I went through that into this bright white flash of light and then directly into the same particles I was, only denser, more condensed. And I was racing along just imperceptibly fast. And just, again, that sort of curiosity was still there. There was no fear. There was no thinking. I wasn't a mind. I was consciousness. And the side where the darkness was and the deep dark particles all condensed together, it became a little fluid at points. And there were sort of whitish gray, sort of fluidy areas. And then all of a sudden I stopped and I had this download, and it was literally like a download, like a funnel of information. And it all.
You know, she says a tunnel, but take note of the her hand motions. All right, looks like an inverted pyramid to me. You know, make of it what you will.
Download, and it was literally like a download, like a funnel of information, and it all came to one point in front of me, and that was love. And then I felt this incredibly blissful, all-encompassing, unconditional love.
So there we go, right? We've got the love bomb coming on out, rearing its ugly head, and it's, you know, she's already given herself away. You know, oftentimes, actually, I just had a comment the other day from a listener asking, you know, why do some experiencers talk about how they were forced? Well, if you're already interacting and moving along and or even just curious and throwing your intention into the entities, into the matrix, in my opinion, you've already lost. This is why we can't interact. That's why non-interference shielding is so crucial. That's like step one, right? Protecting yourself, not allowing the next step, right? Not allowing anything to interfere with you in the first place, shutting it all down immediately, because then everything spirals out of control, right? Even those who, all different types of things we've heard where people talk about not having a choice or being able to make a decision. Well, what would happen if you didn't interact? I mean, we've seen clearly that we have the ability to shut all of this down instantly if we want to. So let's do that, right? Let's not get to the point where we're reincarnating again. Take power back as a creator being and see what happens.
In front of me, and that was love. And then I felt this
love,
incredibly blissful, all-encompassing, unconditional love that I couldn't even fathom existed. And I was just, it was all of me, and I was it. And it was just like so blissful. And I felt that. And then I looked over to my left, and there was a little white dot of light, and it wanted me. Everything was through feeling. All the communication was through feeling. And I felt it wanted me to come to it. And I felt I wanted to go. So I started to move that way. And as I got closer, the little light became wider and wider and wider. And I could see, and it was sort of a smoky gray, mostly white, opening. And there were shadow beings. There were these darker gray humanoid kind of beings. And in the front was a little boy, and he needed my help. So I went into the space and they sort of fanned out to my left, and I went deep into that space. And then I looked around for the little boy and he wasn't there. And then I felt all of these beings needed my help. And I wanted to help them. I felt back, I want to help you. And then they started to come at me one by one, sort of dart away. And they were taking my energy.
Boom.
I felt myself very similar to how I was in the hallway, where I started to, as my heart I wasn't getting oxygen and my heart wasn't able to beat as it needed to.
So there you have it, massive truth bomb. And, it's interesting because you have the boy and she's saying, oh, well, I knew it needed help. And then soon as she starts to, I guess, attempt to help it, the entities come swirling in and start extracting her energy. Perhaps she was interacting with a soul or a true essence being, let's say, that spirit that wasn't supposed to be interfered with. Or it was an illusion put forth for her. Tough to say either way, but you know, right out the gate, we have her admitting to being manipulated for energy. I'm just going to repeat that. I'm not going to go back too far, but big moment right there. The Loosh bomb.
He wasn't there. And then I felt all of these beings needed my help. And I wanted to help them. I felt back, I want to help you. And then they started to come at me one by one, sort of dart away. And they were taking my energy. I felt myself very similar to how I was in the hallway, where I started to, as my heart I wasn't getting oxygen and my heart wasn't able to beat as it needed to, everything started to go dark. Well, that's how I felt in that space. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't anxious. I was just sort of neutral in my desire to be there or not be there. It wasn't really either or. But as soon as I felt myself diminish, I felt, no, I want to leave. And I was pulled out of there. And I started moving back into the dense particulate matter kind of space, and was there very briefly. And then there was a less distinct opening, which was the dark particulate matter. And then I could tell that there was a sort of a circle, and I moved through that, and I merged into this gorgeous landscape. It was beautiful yellow flowers and mossy rock covered waterfall to my left, and a evergreen forest to my right. And then out in the distance, there were these green rolling hills, and it was dotted with trees, this bright blue sky, and the sun was over behind the waterfall somewhere, but it was shining.
How often do we run across these types of scenarios where it's like it's the beautiful, amazing nature realm? This is an in-between realm. I'm telling you, my friends, it couldn't be more clear that this is what's going on. It's like a waiting room, and it pops up constantly, especially with more so with NDEers in Europe, but it's common in the US too, and throughout the realm. But it's wild to just continually see this type of setting, right? Which goes to the point that it's all an AI construct. It really is. I mean, it's the situation, some of the scenery may be tweaked, right? But in general, when the descriptions are always very similar. So yeah, we are creator beings, but interacting and tangling with these illusions and these entities and the Matrix AI system, well, it can funnel you into certain realms and amaze you and Of course, if you're being love bombed on top of it, well, and to boot, it's familiar sightings, right? It's something you're familiar with because you just came from Earth. So a nice green, lush setting, peaceful nature setting, everyone's going to like that, right? So it's going to put individuals at ease, which is all part and parcel to the deception.
This bright blue sky, and the sun was over behind the waterfall somewhere, but it was shining out. And I just immediately merged with all of it. It was as if I were the flowers, I was the waterfall, everything. And it merged back with me. It was like this exchange of it was love. It was just pure bliss, pure love. And I was, again, marveling at all of it. And then these beings appeared on either side of where, again, it's just my vision. And they appear on either side of me, and they're communicating through feeling. And they communicated to me, you can stay here. You can go to what is beyond this, or you can go back. And, you know, they were there to support me. They weren't there to tell me what to do or to give me any more information. I didn't desire any more information. I didn't need to know what
well, yeah, but remember, we're talking downloads too, right? She used the term download. So what does that mean? That means the information is coming exterior to her, just like everyone else. Every single other experience or case out there, especially NDEs. You know, breakthrough trips can be a little different because it's so chaotic, but there are, of course, consistencies there too, right? It just can be more chaotic. Let's just put it that way. Anyways, download, or sometimes individuals will say, oh, well, I knew the answer to every question. But as you start to analyze what they're saying more and more, what they're really saying is that they're receiving this information, or they were being given this information. It's not that it was organic. Sure, some of it could, of course, come from their essence, right? But in the grand scheme of things, when you really boil it down to what they're saying, they are receiving information. Remember, they're in matrix sanctioned realms. They're in their world, not, they have the control, right? To whatever extent they do, but it's their creation, and she has put herself into it, or allowed herself to kind of be funneled into it, let's say. Just like when we come here, we're in their created meat suits, in their created realms, and there are limitations while we're here.
Information. I didn't desire any more information. I didn't need to know what was next. I didn't need to know what would happen if I stayed there. And I did not have a memory of being a human being.
Now talk about how much control that gives them, right? Massive. Remember, she doesn't remember her human life. So talk about how easy it is to get someone back here with that kind of upper hand.
So I didn't know what going back was. But I felt back to them. I'd like to go back. And as soon as I felt that, I started moving backwards, back into the particulate matter space again. And as I moved, in that opening started to become smaller. They were there, and they sort of looked back at me and communicated, if you go back, you need to share what you learned here. And I felt back to them, okay. And the next thing I knew, pain in my chest. And then there was a memory of somebody had put headphones on me and was playing a song. And I recognized the song, and I was sort of singing the words. And
See, like, that's a setup. Remember, she's not really remembering at this point. So, of course, she comes back into existence in human form, and lo and behold, there's a familiar song playing. You know, just to jar loose and get the process moving a little quicker.
Then the next thing I recall was hearing a commotion, and I was in a bed. I was in the ICU. I was in a bed, and I unhooked everything I was attached to and climbed over the railing of the bed and landed on the floor and wasn't sure it was going to support me. My legs were pretty shaky, but I got my bearings and I opened the curtain and I saw about 9 members of my family all in a huddle over, 30 feet away. And I saw my father's head pop up and he just goes, whoa. And then all of a sudden I had everybody getting me back into bed, hooking me back up. And I remember feeling so frustrated because I said, I just want to go home, you guys. I just want to go home. I'm fine. I just want to go home. And they're like, no, you're not fine. You need to stay, blah, blah, blah. And I had no recall of my NDE. I had no recall of anything. And I didn't even know who these people were. I knew I was Krista, but beyond that, I didn't really know much. And I laid in that bed and the nurse came by. They got everyone out of there. And the nurse came by and she was picking something up. I saw her bend over the end of the bed. And I just blurted out, I'm a physician assistant and I'm going to be working for Dr. Robert Ford. And he was my first employer as a new PA. I just graduated 3 weeks before. Where that came from, I have no idea, but I just blurted it out and she just looked at me like deers in the headlights. And she said, okay. And it was written down in quotes in my chart because I read it later. But it was an acknowledgement that I was there, that I was going to be okay, because what had happened was I had an amniotic fluid embolism. It had basically blocked off my lung vasculature and stopped my heart for 8 minutes.
So, I don't know, just kind of like to back up just a second. I'm not going to rewind it, but it's interesting how some of her first words is like, hey, I work for Dr. So-and-so and, I'm going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And she just graduated 3 weeks prior. So it's a recent memory. A lot of times with coma patients, well, I guess we can kind of veer into amnesia. Well, not a lot. I can't say a lot of times, but oftentimes those who have trouble with recall, their memory is fine up until a certain point, and then it's after the coma, like new individuals that come into their life, they may have issues with. And sometimes it takes a period of time for that to kind of ease its way out and for them to get back to normal, or it could be permanent, like anterograde amnesia. I've covered that on the members videos before. I mean, there's all sorts of amnesia that can take place, whether they're linked to comas or not. That's a whole nother thing. It could be blunt force trauma, whatever the case may be. Anyways, it's interesting, right? Because you're going to hear some things that she says somewhat soon regarding, what is it? Can't really say it, but, the thing that's been going on or was going on the last few years and all that. So it's interesting that, like, that's the first thing that she says related to the medical field, right? It's related to the medical profession. It's like, hey, here's some good music and boom. Let's get back to work now. Get back to work.
During that period of time, I had gone into a condition called disseminated intravascular coagulation, where the person can't clot their blood and they bleed out. So I survived that as well. And they had intubated me in the ICU, and 36 hours later, I was so stable that they extubated me and had been weaning me off of the medication that they had induced a coma with. And that's where I came to and unhooked everything and climbed out of the bed. But I was then moved to a private room and stayed there for several days. And I was just in this state of complete bliss. Everything was perfect. Everything was wonderful. I had no recall of my NDE yet. I didn't remember I was pregnant, but as soon as they brought my daughter to me, it was day 6. They brought my daughter to me, and she had been in a NICU at another hospital. She had to be transported. She had some issues after she was born.
Boy, I wonder why they only like clamped something on her head. The poor thing. You know, again, nothing to do with Krista. You know, my heart goes out to Krista. She's been through hell. But the poor daughter, right? Welcome to the world. Yeah, before you exit, let's just clamp this device on your head. Really? Ugh, what an introduction to this incarnation, the poor thing.
But she was stable enough to be discharged too. And she came to me and I held her and I felt like I already knew her, like we had met. And this was not the first time. And my face didn't show it. My face, I have seen the video of it, very blank, very non-emotional. But inside, I was feeling just so happy and so blissed out. And I assumed everyone could feel me. I assumed everyone knew exactly what I was feeling.
So she's all blissed out, comes back and is all blissed out, just like the Matrix would want.
And there was no reason to speak. And so I figured everyone just, you know, kind of already knew. So I'm there enjoying and happy. And they're all looking at me like, oh my gosh, is she okay? Is she going to be okay? Yeah. So I was discharged home and from there it was quite a journey of first having my experience come back to me during sleep weeks later, and suddenly waking up and I was a completely different person at that point. I had the full experience and explanations for my family anyway of why I was the way I was, because I'd completely done a 180 and personality wise. I've been very type A and you know, science focused and I was going to be a PA, and I was determined to be the best I could for my patients, the best practitioner I could be to take care of them. And all that was kind of gone. I didn't remember being in PA school. I didn't remember a lot of things due to the lack of oxygen to my brain during that time. A lot of it came back. But you know, when I came back into my body and then woke up and then had the recall and had some understanding of it at that point, I was able to sort of, you know, have some critical thinking around it. And I just realized that, you know, I knew my life was never going to be the same. And I had this job to do, this promise I'd made to share what I learned. And for me, what I had learned was that we are the embodiment of divine love.
Okay, so there you go, right? I made a promise. Remember, there's memories of what happened, but of course, the memory about what she has to do when she comes back is about divine love, about spreading the word of love, which is all said and good, right? I'm not knocking, you know, love is the best thing that the realm has going, right? It's great. But when you realize that it's a tactic used against us, along with attachments and fear and anger and anxiety and joy and happiness and bliss and on and on and on. When you realize that all these things kind of fall into place related to Loosh and stealing our creative energy, however you want to do it, either way, the deck is stacked against us once we're here. And all the Matrix is hoping to do is get us on its side lifetime after lifetime. And then it moves on to the next individual and the next individual. And that's all it cares about. It just wants you to believe this one last time. And then, boom, you die. Oh, how convenient. You get memory wiped and come back again. And then all it has to do is, again, convince you the next incarnation. It's incarnation to incarnation. That's all it needs. It doesn't care about you. There is no godly divine figure looking over us. It's a parasitic system through and through. And it reveals itself constantly. It's a fact. It's a fact. It's all around us. And the deception, unless you've been living under a rock, the deception runs nonstop here. Well, guess what? The deception runs nonstop over there, out there, whatever you want to call it, up there. Pick it. Either way, it's constantly happening. So why bank on it being truthful? If the creation that we all came from gave us this, then the question really should be well, what the hell what is this creation? What is this nut house, right? That should be the question. And then when you see how it works itself outside of here through some things like experience your cases, regardless of what type, it's the same playbook over and over and over again. The patterns don't lie, my friends. Sure, some of the little things in between that we talk about may be off, they may be wrong, but in the end, the basic concept, in my opinion, can't be denied. You have to remember, we came from this system, we're here, then you have an experience, let's say, and you're dealing with the system again outside of here, and it's the same bullshit. And all it's trying to do is get you and I to believe in it, to give it some sort of authenticity, that it's better than us. Just think, the God narrative alone is so freaking powerful. It's not even funny. Of course, then you can go to the reverse of it, where it's like staunch materialists, where they think, they're just a bag of bones when they die. Either way, and everything in between, all of that stuff is perfectly designed, perfectly, to get you to give yourself over to it. So why not take a chance with standing your ground, doing your own thing, and deciding to take the path of non-interference, sovereignty, and liberation? How can it hurt? For anyone on the fence, it can't hurt to try. That's all. Just try. Can't hurt. Hey, later on, if you get bored or something and everything is wrong that we talk about and the sovereign path is incorrect, then okay, go to the light, have fun. But until then, it's like if you do anything else but that, in my opinion, you're kind of just serving yourself on a silver platter to the Matrix. And that doesn't sit well with me. It just, it doesn't. Blind faith and blind trust in anything seems to be our downfall all the time. Not just here, but out there. So anyways, that's my little soapbox speech.
This promise I'd made to share what I learned. And for me, what I had learned was that
propagate the Matrix.
We are the embodiment of divine love, of what we call with human words, God. That's what Christians and other religions call it, and other religions have different names, but the name doesn't matter because it all points to the same thing. And for me, God is simply love. And it's what we're made of. It's what everything is made of. And that having that sort of job to do in my old life, coming back into my old body, in my old life, where, you know, the way I was already well defined. I had to redefine myself. And I first had to explore who Krista was in this life, in this world, and heal parts of me that needed to be healed, and understand my experience in the ways that I needed to understand it in order to authentically share the message. And the shadow beings I learned,
Here we go. Excuse
for me,
train.
was a point where I was checking in. My experience was created and co-created. So I created it, and the universe co-created it with me. Universe, God, spirit, whatever we want to call it, co-created it with me. And it was purposeful, and it was for me, as much as it is for everyone else.
Okay, so in many senses, what she's saying is true, right? The experience that an NDEer has is customized to them, but we do see consistent patterns, right? And those consistent patterns are things like the tunnel that leads to the light, the deceased relatives, deceased pets, the void, and then the lights in the distance, or the nature realm, like we saw earlier. Like, there are very consistent things going on that point to a intelligently designed system, right? That is completely set up to manipulate you. Now, with her, she is someone who, she's a giver, right? She wants to help individuals, right? Like, she went into the healthcare field. That's awesome. There are a lot of special individuals out there who make it their mission to help others. And, we got to thank them for being out there, including Krista. But did Krista kind of back into a truth bomb about Loosh? Personally, I think absolutely. But at the same time, the customization of the experience does come into play. It does. And someone who's a healthcare worker or is about to become a full-time healthcare worker would fall into that customization, right? Like, oh, remember, she talked earlier about wanting to help the boy. Like, she knew she had to help the boy. But then the entities came swirling in and darted in and out and were feeding off her energy, right? And she kind of compares it to being something like a lesson for her. But she stayed in the same profession, right? I guess if it was too much, she wouldn't. But I think deep within her heart, that's what she wants to do. She wants to help others. That's clear. It's not, I don't think I know. I mean, she's clearly a very giving individual, but she's paying dearly for that. And we're going to hear a few more things discussed relating to the thing that's happened in the last few years.
Spirit, whatever we want to call it, co-created it with me. And it was purposeful, and it was for me, as much as it is for everyone else. And the shadow beings were a way of me seeing if I could choose me first over helping others, over giving my energy away to others. And all of us can identify with that. That sort of feeling like you're depleted after being with people that you're trying to help, or people coming to you for things and you can only give them so much. For me in my life, I've always been in helping professions, and I gave of myself and gave of myself without replenishing. I learned through my near-death experience and what it taught me how to allow for that universal energy, that love, to move through me and share it with other people without feeling depleted of energy. And that was an important piece. Could I do that? Because that's very much a part of why I came back.
Okay. So coming back to help others is a very important part of her coming back. That's awesome of her to have that. But remember, there was a memory wipe going on. The Matrix really, the induced coma. It's like she was bordering, right? Bordering on a, like I think there's a little bit of a difference that you have. You kind of have like the going back and forth between a full-fledged 5-alarm out-of-body experience and a near-death experience. So it's kind of like weaving in and out of, that's kind of like what my gut was telling me with what she was talking about earlier. But, make of it what you will.
Of energy. And that was an important piece. Could I do that? Because that's very much a part of why I came back, doing what I'm doing. So that little piece of my NDE, for a long time, I didn't understand it. And then, after some growth, I did. And the other piece was there's something called, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, law of attraction. And it's spoken of in many circles. Okay,
I'm just going to pause it right here. You got to remember, she, as far as I understand, is this wasn't necessarily known to Krista before coming back, right? You cannot forget that near-death experiencers come back as new individuals. They are totally driven to think differently, to look at things differently, to investigate what happened to them and make sense of it. And Krista's no different. I mean, I'm not sitting here and I can't say definitively that she wasn't looking into things like law of attraction and all that stuff, right? All the Matrix stuff that's out there, right? But if I had to guess, she probably didn't. And what happens? The experiencer comes back to the realm and is trying to figure out what happened to them. They're looking everywhere, trying to find answers. And then what do? I mean, near-death experiences, I'm sorry. They are going to come back to a world of love and light, to the new age deception. They're going to be funneled right into it. There's no getting around it. It's all there for them to consume. And what path they choose to take and where they go with all of that in their life is up to them. But the problem is there is so much out there, and all it does is reconfirm and reconfirm and reconfirm. And then their mind adjusts to the collective that is already here and has had experiences and all the data and everything's love and light. The ones who may have a little bit of a difference of opinion in this are the hellish like NDEs, right? That's about it. But besides that, she's funneled right back into a system that is going to confirm that, yes, her experience was legitimate, it was real, it had all these different data points, and she'll take solace in that. So then it goes and takes another leap forward. And different beliefs start to be kind of penetrated into her psyche. And it just goes from there. So I think it's really important to say that. I mean, the indoctrination that happens when someone comes back here, there's a whole industry ready and waiting for them to appear. And all the information is just lined up out the gates. And what they do with that information is one thing. I think discernment kind of falls off the tracks because there's so much, right? There's so much there that confirms how they think, what happened to them, and how they should go about life, and yada, yada, yada. And that everything's about love, right? I mean, everything's love. If you experience love in an experience, if you experience love in an experiencer case, then when you come back and that is continually reaffirmed by others, you're not going to think that you have it wrong or that there's anything deceptive going on. You're just going to be like, okay, well, it makes sense. And it's, again, I'm not crapping on Krista or any of these experiencers. It's just that there's a whole set of indoctrination and propaganda ready and waiting for experiencers to come back to fall into. And then eventually they share their story and life goes on.
I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it, law of attraction. And it's spoken of in many circles. But for me, I experienced it as a force, a true force, where in a non-resistant realm, such as the one I was in, non-resistance, there's no resistance. It's pure energy, pure love energy.
Okay, the reason why, remember at the beginning of the experience, I'm sorry for stopping it again, guys, but just think about in the beginning when she was talking about how, what was it? How she had left her by this very, very beginning. All right, leaves her body and is kind of curious what's going on around her, wants to stick around and hang out, and is curious. And then she's kind of being tugged. Like, hey, come on. And eventually she gives in. Well, if she didn't give in, it would be a completely different story, right?
As the one I was in, non-resistance, there's no resistance. It's pure.
There can't be resistance once you go along with them, right? If you go along with them, I'm sorry, that was the point I was trying to make. There's no resistance because you've already fallen into their grips. That's what happens with this love bomb. That's what happens with the attachments and everything else. All this stuff is designed to make it all but impossible to resist. Because you're in this state of bliss, you're enjoying yourself, you're getting answers to the universe and everything else. So resistance isn't even possible. But she did resist in the beginning. She said, no, I want to stay. But then eventually she gave in because she allowed the illusions to take control of her.
As the one I was in, non-resistance, there's no resistance. It's pure energy, pure love energy. The law of attraction, your desire is met immediately. There's no wait time. There's no lag time. Here, ego represents resistance. So when we're able to be ego free and in a space of allowing and being open, then the things that we desire can better manifest. And also we can more purely communicate with one another and really understand one another. So those are really the two big things for me that I gleaned directly from my NDE. There's so many other things that have come to me over the years that come up through intuition that I know to be true. And I feel that that was part of the download that I had, those moments.
Remember, she says download. She specifically, using that term, just like quite a few others. Either download or given or handed.
Of understanding.
Krista, thank you for sharing.
Okay, so before Jeff gets to this great Q&A session, and he does ask some great questions like he always does, I'm going to have to take a break. So we'll be back here in about 5 or 6 minutes. Hang in there, my friends, and look forward to seeing you shortly. Thank you. Okay. So, before we get to Jeff's Q&As, just have a couple things I want to go over. I want to give Nicholas a big thank you for your very kind and generous super chat. Thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate you. And Ken Albert, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you too. You're always so kind and generous, my friend. Thank you. And all the members out there, I appreciate you as well. And all listeners, I hope you're finding value in today's stream. And just as a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only. I guess the only thing I guess I really would like to say is, I'm at the point where I'm not interested in arguing with individuals anymore. I don't, I'll answer questions, but like, if it's like, there was like a question that was religious, at least slanted earlier in the stream, like right before we started and things like that, I'm not. And then there was one before the break. I mean, I'm just not looking to tango with anybody. You know, it's like, I'm just presenting the information and make of it what you will, right? The biggest thing I keep saying is do your own research and use common sense. Apply common sense to what is going on in the world, to what the human body is, right? The early childhood development, the wage slave system. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. I mean, you know, one little thing can't shoot down a list of facts, you know, about what this place is, if one's being honest with themselves. Now, you could prop up deities and God. I mean, God is by far the biggest hurdle out there. Even at the beginning, when I was talking about the soul trap, I still kind of had this creator in mind, right? I mean, in some of my earlier videos, you'll hear me talking about, hey, the creator, you know, if there's a creator, it makes sense and this and that. Well, maybe it doesn't make sense. I don't know anymore. But either way, at a minimum, call it God, call it the creator, call it source, whatever you want to call it, it's clearly absentee. It is not something that is going to step in and save you or me or this realm or shut this whole thing down. This whole system has been going on for eons. It is running exactly the way it's supposed to run. And anything that we learn here should be heavily, heavily subjected to criticism and scrutiny. And then when you kind of take a leap forward and look at experiencer cases, these are individuals interacting directly with the Matrix. It really points, it shows it all. And yeah, we're not going to have all the answers, but it shows it's going to show a decent outline. That's what I should say. It's going to show a decent outline where you should feel confident in taking the sovereign path through non-interference, liberating yourself on your own terms, not kowtowing to illusions or attachments. That's all. I'm not here to go to battle with anyone anymore. I just don't care. I'll answer questions and things like that, but, you know, little gotcha things. There's no gotcha question out there that can explain away everything. Oh, well, how does, Christianity is like the biggest religion in the whole Matrix. So how do you explain Hollywood? How do you explain Hollywood demeaning Christianity? I don't know. I don't care. Because they're a bunch of psychos that run this place. Maybe they want to get everyone under a one world religion. I mean, that's been suggested for a few decades now. Almost 3 decades. So if that's the case, then maybe there's the answer. How do I know? But does that, like, all of a sudden throw away all of the data that's here and common sense about everyday existence? Some people forget that, you know, in their air-conditioned homes and their heated apartments and their plumbing and their refrigerator and their electricity and their solar panels and their grocery stores, some people like to forget that there are a huge number of others who suffer way worse than them. They just block it out. They forget that there's child labor. They forget that there are sex slaves. They forget all sorts of other things because, well, you know, they're not living that life. But how do you explain it away? You don't. Explaining it away is just kowtowing to your belief, to your hope, and that everything will be okay because the Matrix says so. Anyways, I had to say that. So if you're looking for arguments and all that stuff, I just don't care. I don't care. I'll answer questions for those who are curious and try and maybe say, hey, go check this out, you know, go check that out. Maybe you'll find better information here or there. But in the end, like, it's up to everyone to go out and do their own research and prove this to themselves. That's all. I'm tired. It is what it is. All right. Anyways, end of rant. Here's Jeff going in for the Q&A.
The download that I had, you know, those moments of understanding.
Krista, thank you for sharing your experience. When you first were out of your body and you were looking at it and you saw these black particles coming towards you, what were those particles?
They were the essence of my soul, the essence of me. I carried it with me into the next part, you know, the next realm of my experience.
So you think it's kind of like symbolized as black particles, or do you think those were actual physical or energetic pieces of you coming to you?
I feel they were energetic pieces of me. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You were looking at...
See, that's an interesting response. Energetic pieces of her. You know what it kind of reminds me of? I'm sorry, I got to pause this and kind of talk about this. There was a few NDEs, and I don't ask for the names because I'm not going to remember, but there's a few that we covered. One was of someone who had, I don't know, some sort of traumatic incident, and a tunnel opened up, and I think they saw 6 pieces, I believe in a pyramid shape, that flew down the tunnel ahead of them. So in my opinion, those were fragments possibly of the individual. And then there was another one where we saw them and they were spheres. I don't remember how many. There weren't as many. I think there's like 2 or 3 that flew down the tunnel ahead of them, right at the beginning of both their experiences. So the fragmentation, I think, is a valid thing to think about, right? If we are fragmented, perhaps they are in the chakras. Maybe. I don't know. There's definitely some sort of etheric overlays, etheric something that prevents us from connecting with 100% of our essence. And it's not just etheric, it's the human body in general. It's just the design. It's purposely made this way for us not to find ourselves, or at least not 100% not find ourselves, but make it a lot more difficult. It's clear that the body is designed in a certain way for us to not rediscover our true essence and instead fall into the illusion more and more and more with each lifetime as it passes by. So, the fragmentation is something to think about. But I'll just say one more thing and then I'll shut up. With when you're leaving here, right? You're going to shield yourself, but some of you out there, and I understand completely why some of you feel this way, but some of you will say, oh, well, I don't want any memories or recollection of anything that I've experienced on Earth throughout however many lifetimes. Trust me, I get it. Right? But in the same breath, as creator beings, can we destroy memories of experiences? Perhaps. I don't discount it. But at the same time, right? Wouldn't you want access to the memories that you've had of Earth? Because then it would act as a deterrent to never fall into a BS system like we're in, right? I think there's a lot to consider there, because you don't want to rid yourself of all those memories. You want access to them. Doesn't mean you have to dwell on them or anything, right? It just means that it's there in the back of your eternal head, so to say, and that it's a warning sign to never give even 0.00001% of your essence in exchange for experience, or to go and involve yourself with a realm that has memory wipes. Like, if there's any sort of exchange in the future that is required to enter a realm, then forget it. I mean, to me, it's like, don't even go there. Like, there's so many other things. We can create our own realms, right? Or we can go and visit others that aren't parasitic, right? I'm convinced there's plenty of those out there. But having those memories, I think, is important. So when we're leaving here, I'm almost done. When leaving here, we want to make sure that we have access to 100% of all of our memories, not just the Earth memories, but everything. We're working from a clean slate where we have access to everything so we can make informed decisions going forward. Because without that information, if we rid ourselves of that information, of those experiences, then perhaps we can fall down the rabbit hole again and be curious and maybe want to go and experience Earth. But if you're kind of deleting those memories, that seems risky. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, I just thought I'd say that. We got the fragments and all. I mean, I know I kind of went off a little bit, but I'm just saying, give it some serious consideration for those of you who are thinking to get rid of all that, because I think there's value there. Experience holds value, whether we're not here to learn or grow or all that stuff, but there is experience gained here that can prevent us from falling into BS like this, the Earth experience, again. Whether it's here or other realms that are like this or have a similar sinister agenda behind them. We don't want to do that, right? Enough.
I feel they were energetic pieces of me. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You were looking at your body, you were kind of emotionless about it. I mean, you weren't really upset or having any fear. Did you make the connection that maybe I'm dead at that point?
No, because there wasn't an I. There wasn't a me. There was just my existence as I know myself, but there wasn't any sort of connection thing. This detached, sort of neutral, just being, just kind of just being there.
One of the things you've got from the download was love, but did you get a bunch of information downloaded as well? And if so, can you share with us some of the other things that you downloaded?
There wasn't anything that I could point to and say, I learned this and I learned this and I learned this. It's more of I felt like my DNA had been restructured, had been, restructured.
So you went to the reprogramming center. And things like, there's some really interesting experiences out there, especially in South America, but they're all subtitled. They're long. There's no English translation. So anyone out there who speaks, pretty fluent English and may be interested in doing a voiceover for some, I've got some really interesting cases I'd like to cover. And so reach out to me through Discord if you're a member, or through email. Just put translator or translation in the subject email, foreverconsciousresearch@gmail.com. There's no channel in that. But there was something else I was going to say. Sorry, let me just back this up.
I learned this. It's more of I felt like my DNA had been restructured, had been, restructured.
Okay, so yes, I'm sorry. So some of the traumatic experiences I've seen, there's like these healing centers, and sometimes they'll represent, it'll be similar to a hospital setting, but it'll be run down and just nasty setting, right? But it'll be a healing center, and it'll be entities kind of weaving in and out of or around and circling in certain patterns to heal, for lack of a better term, the astral body, and it impacts the physical body. I know it sounds crazy, but there are these miraculous type healings out there that do occur. Some of them are completely insane and defy, for lack of a better term, like medical technology, right? I mean, they're cases where someone should not have come back, and they did. And there's cases where they come back and they are miraculously healed, and their recovery time is close to nothing. And all of a sudden, they're leaving the hospital within a few days or a few weeks, and they're fine. And the hospital's like, wait a minute. Like, all these injuries, all this trauma that occurred, and yet they're able to leave. And they end up checking them out because there's nothing wrong with them. These types of cases are out there. They're not exactly easy to find, but they exist. Anyways, comas are really, really fascinating because you can see them, the healing modalities, pop up a little bit more frequently.
I learned this. It's more of I felt like my DNA had been restructured, had been, restructured. And that information is all part of that restructuring, if that makes any sense. And that's what I carried back with me when I came back. And that's why I felt so different in my body, in Krista's body. And when some people come back from NDEs and they have these gifts where they can, understand what somebody's thinking, understand what somebody's feeling, or they can predict the future, or they're psychic now, or even other gifts, other sort of playing a piano or learning a language, things like that. For me, it's been a sort of a journey of discovery, but the most pronounced thing was my understanding, my broader understandings that come to me when I'm in the face of information that's being presented. One example would be when COVID first broke. I knew that this was going to be an endemic virus. I knew that we would be going through a rough period of time for a while as a world. I knew that there were those of us who were here to sort of anchor and kind of hold us all together energetically. And I was one of those people. And I went and I worked in the field hospitals, COVID field hospitals in New York and Texas. And
just one moment. I got to be careful here. You get the gist of what she's saying.
be this huge.
All right, I've got to bypass this. Sorry. Okay, so she worked in field hospitals. You get what she's saying, and how there be two opposing sides related to the thing,
And it's kind of difficult to put into words, but every single event, has happened for a reason, and it's beyond what a lot of us understand.
Okay, so here is the excuse train, right? Like, everything happens for a reason, and yeah, I mean, everything does happen for a reason because it's programmed, right? It's part of how the script is being run. But I have a big problem with the excuses that come out, right? Granted, yes, she wants to help individuals, but at the same time, she's aware of the industry related to all that. And, because it's linked to the way things are supposed to be, there's a reason for it, your evolution, your growth, blah, 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 that it's okay. It's okay. I don't align with that whatsoever. I think it's just excuses. That's all.
It's beyond what a lot of us understand. And it's beyond what I can put into words. But I know in my essence of my being that all of it is leading towards an amazing existence for us.
An amazing existence of illusion. And bowing down to the Matrix. As long as you're not going to continue to believe in it, you'll be all right. But if you believe that what is being done is righteous and for your own benefit, for the collective benefit, then that's something else entirely.
That all of it is leading towards an amazing existence for us. And we do not have to be afraid. We can choose not to be afraid. So
that's good advice.
The fear component of it is it's
part
a
of the
huge
Loosh
deterrent from what we're really here to do, which is to share love.
The fear component is a big part of it, and it's all about love. No, not buying what you're selling, not buying what the Matrix is selling anymore. Enough. We got to take control of ourselves
and connect and help show each other how we can live in a world where love is the predominant force. And there's just a lot of little things, that I've noticed in the news, and where I'll read something and just have an understanding, a broader, much broader understanding of it, reading between the lines. Yeah, so it's a little difficult. One thing that I've noticed is that the state I'm in energetically at any given moment, other people pick up on, sometimes immediately, and begin to reflect back to me. I feel them shift. I've noticed it with patients. I've noticed it with colleagues. That the way that I feel, the way that I move energy is felt by other people, and whether they realize it or not, and that I am immediately affecting other people by how I feel in that moment, how I choose to feel in that moment. So it makes it so important to be that center of the storm, to be the peace, amongst the chaos, and be that focus of love energy, and walk my hero's journey,
Okay, so she fell knee deep into everything is love while she was on the other side in the astral realms, still within the matrix. And then when she came back here and started to fall into the new age narratives and the research related to NDEs, not her fault at all. So Krista, if you happen to be listening, my commentary is nothing against you personally. I think everyone has to go about their journey, and these types of experiences are difficult. But at the same time, it doesn't do us any good to think that everything is love when it's counterproductive to what's actually occurring here. I mean, the best, I actually saw a comment from, sorry, let me just go to Buck. Buck Doe says, if you wait until death comes to say no to the realm where death rules, don't you think it's too late? Isn't that illogical? Don't you think we need to find a solution while living? Look, the only thing I've talked about as far as a solution goes is to work on astral projection, work on lucid dreaming, work on expanding your consciousness or altered states of consciousness, right? Go for a test run. I mean, I can't talk about anything relating to substances, but those are something to consider. But at the same time, they're not for everyone. They could help you. They could hurt you. But in my opinion, they should be more or less the last resort, because you want as much lucidity as possible. You want full lucidity, really. And the way to achieve that is through things like meditation, things like mindfulness, daily mindfulness practice, mindfulness alarm, working on lucid dreaming practice, working on astral projection, and exploring outside your body. And I mean, I know a lot of us are kind of like in a rush and, want to get the ball moving. But at the same time, there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that taking one's own self is not the answer. It's not. There's a lot involved with that, and it's just not at all what this channel represents. And when I talk about, you want to work on your lucidity, you want to work on connecting within. That is so, so important. And I know some people, crap on me for that. They shit on me for that, but it is what it is. I'm telling you how I feel and it's really important. We need to work on ourselves. And, you know, some of it's difficult. You know, hey, in the beginning, setting up a mindfulness practice, a meditation practice on a daily basis and committing yourself to it, it takes drive. You have to want it. Working on astral projection and lucid dreaming and all that, it's a process. It's not going to come overnight. Some people it might. Some people are really, in tune and will fall right into it easily. Some are wired differently. But the reason why I push all those things is because, especially like just daily practice, like meditation and mindfulness practice and setting up the mindfulness alarm and all that stuff, what it does is it equalizes you, centers you. And I've been doing it now for, I don't know, what is it, 7 years now? About that. And I swear by it. It'll help you. You won't react as much. Of course, the Matrix is going to throw garbage at you. It's going to throw garbage at me. And you're going to have to deal with it. But in the end, how do you react to it, right? That's something I've especially been wrestling with more recently, the last few months. But I'm trying to get myself in a better headspace, a better day-to-day, I guess you can say. And what it does is by opening yourself up and allowing yourself to not be reactionary, and centering yourself with something like a mindfulness alarm. I know I'm kind of all over the place here. I'm sorry, but say, for instance, you set a mindfulness alarm for every hour, every couple hours. You could start off, personally, I think every hour is good, every 45 minutes, but you can do every couple hours or hour and a half to start off with. And whatever you're doing, once the alarm goes off, you stop immediately as soon as the alarm goes off. You can close your eyes, whatever you got to do. Just take 1 minute or 2 minutes and concentrate on yourself. Center yourself like, okay, hey, I'm having a hectic day. The world is coming at me full steam. But you got your mindfulness alarm going off every hour or however you set it. And you're going to just take out 1 or 2 minutes every hour, hour and a half, whatever you set it to. And that's your time to kind of recalibrate yourself. And then those practices will carry over into things like meditation. They'll carry over into things like astral projection and lucid dreaming. I mean, the benefits are huge, absolutely huge. And anyone who can sit here and say, oh, well, I can't do that. You really can't take a minute or 2 minutes out of every hour that you're awake? Really? And even those who will say like, oh, I can't meditate and this, that. Look, I get that. I get it. I had trouble with it early on too. But with the mindfulness alarm, you'll start to notice that if you do try to go and meditate, it'll be easier because you're used to kind of going into that brainwave state. And then you could kind of carry that over into things like lucid dreaming and astral projection practice. So really worth your time. It really is. I promise you. If you just give it a shot, start with mindfulness and even mindful eating, mindful hiking, walking, whatever. I do it on the trail. Or a lot of times I'll do it if I'm eating cereal. Or sometimes with dinner, not as much with dinner personally, but with breakfast I'll do it a lot. I don't eat breakfast all that often, but if I'm eating cereal for lunch or something like that, I'll do it, and it helps. It's like you're thinking, you're slowing yourself down with each bite or with each step that you're on the trail, concentrating. Each step is a breathe in, a breathe out, a breathe in, a breathe out. So you're letting yourself slow down, especially in a world filled with technology today. These are things that can help. They really can. So anyways, something to think about, but can't speak for it enough. Hope it helps some of you.
With it.
During your NDE, do you believe that your ego was completely stripped away and all you were was just pure awareness?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Now, part of your experience was that you saw these shadow beings and you saw a boy, and you said that you co-created that. So do you think that those beings and that boy was just like an illusion compared to the beings that you communicated with later that actually gave you the choice to stay or come back?
Listen to a response.
No, I feel that they were entities and they were...
Okay, so they were entities. But remember, she's talking about co-creating in the same breath. But they're entities. So these entities are there as the dangling carrot.
Communicated with later that actually gave you the choice to stay or come back?
That's a really good question. No, I feel that they were entities and they were vibrating at a level that they chose to be at, and that they were there at that point, and they had an opportunity. It felt like they had an opportunity in me to sort of move on from there. They required more energy, and
more energy.
The little boy was sort of a way to evoke a stronger feeling of compassion in me, a desire to help, because that was required.
It was required. Required. I don't like that word.
A feeling of compassion in me, a desire to help, because that was required in order for me to go there. And so, and at the same time, I feel like their sort of manipulation was not
excuses
a bad thing, a negative thing. They were not negative at all.
Well, they can portray themselves as not being negative, but what we heard earlier is her clearly and openly admit that they were taking your energy. That doesn't seem good to me. I don't know about you guys.
Negative at all. They just needed help. It's like they
needed you to feed them. Krista, they needed you to feed them.
Person who is houseless and needs medical attention, but doesn't realize it. I wanted to help, but yeah, that was an absolute requirement. They were ego. They had ego. Yes.
The second beings that gave you the choice, who do you think those beings were?
I feel like they were they chose to be my support. They chose to be present there at that point in my journey. They were like I call them my guardian angels because that's what I can probably most liken them to in terms of of human words to give them. They were ascendant beings. They were completely unconditional in their love for me and completely
Bet they were.
Neutral in everything.
They're neutral as long as you're going along with the show.
So there was no wrong thing. There was no wrong choice.
Oh, trust me, if she stood up for herself, despite being completely overcome by the love bomb, they would change their tune.
There was no wrong, period, in that existence.
One thing that I find fascinating, and I just had a podcast with somebody, 2 guests prior to you, that said communication was done by feeling. And you're saying the same thing. And I think she was the first person who said that.
Yes. And that taught me that here too, that how we feel it supersedes what we say, or even how we think, what the words that we choose to think. It's all about feeling, and feelings are emotions. Are emotions. They're energy.
Okay, yeah, feelings is energy, and feelings is our loosh. I'm sorry, that's what it is. It's part of the sensory experience. And this is how we keep falling into this cycle of death and rebirth, death and rebirth. It just keeps going on and on because we've allowed ourselves to fall into the sensory experience and attachments and all the propaganda and mind control that comes with it. Lifetime after lifetime, epoch after epoch. Who knows how long any of us have been here? But really, the red flags are everywhere, my friends.
Choose to think. It's all about feeling, and feelings are emotions. Are emotions. They're energy and motion. And there's been people who are writing about it. Candace Pert, PhD, who worked at the NIH, was doing research at the time of her death on emotions in the body.
Such a reliable organization too.
And how she wanted to see them and see them work. And she was the first person that I read who described what's called a ligand, which is like a neurochemical going to a receptor in the body. And the ligand wiggles into the receptor. It vibrates into the receptor. And then we experience something in the organ. The organ does something.
So basically it acts like a parasite and tries to force its way in. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
It vibrates into the receptor. And then we experience something in the organ. The organ does something. It releases, insulin or absorbs this other chemical. So, she was looking for that piece, that thing that she could say, okay, this is what love looks like in the body. We're getting there. We're starting to connect science and what we call spirituality, which is really physics and the universe, what makes up the universe.
You said once you came back that you healed parts of yourself. What parts of yourself did you heal?
Well, I healed my way of being in the world, how I feel in my body, in this vehicle that I carry around. I was able to glean my experience, what I learned in my experience, the love, take that love.
Notice how she says learned in my experience, learned. was indoctrinated, was programmed. Just saying, learned, downloaded, as she said earlier.
That love, actual experience of being in it, and put it into words and practice these, they're states of being. And I practiced them, and I was able to become more of who I really am. And that's love. And physically embody it and based on how I feel. So I was at a point in my life 10 years after my experience where I was having a hard time in my marriage and my life, my work life, everything was sort of like blowing up in front of me, and I just wasn't happy. And I was looking for that love and trying to figure it all out.
Well, she was looking for it. So she's putting her intention out there, looking for it. And well, there's a delivery system ready and waiting called the Matrix.
For that love and trying to figure it all out. And so I just started meditating, and I was constantly just letting go of ego, letting go of fear, letting go of desire to control all
right, let's just get this out of the way. I'm sorry for stopping so much, but let's just talk spade to spade, right? If you are in a human body, you can never fully get rid of the ego. I know there are channels and all sorts of individuals who say like, oh, all you got to do is get rid of the ego. Do this, do that, get rid of the ego. If you're a human, you're going to have an ego in some way, shape, or form. Some have crazy egos, parasitic egos. Some have, middle of the road egos. Some have low egos and don't care. But either way, however you want to frame it, if you're human and you're in a body, you're going to have some, at least minute level of ego. It is not something you can ever rid yourself of as long as you're in the meat suit. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people like this. This ego thing loves to be thrown out constantly. Rid yourself of the ego. Blah, 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 blah. On and on. I mean, it's new age mumbo jumbo. But in the end, you're going to have a little ego. It's just the way it is. Trust me, I tried. You can't get rid of it completely. Does that mean you're an egomaniac or this or that? No. It just means that you're in the meat suit and you're dealing with the perception that you have. And you try and adjust and make the best of it. But for fuck's sake. I mean, let's just get real. Okay? Let's talk turkey. Let's get real. Let's talk turkey. Kind of like a opposing sides, let's say. But anyways, you know what I'm saying. At least I hope you do. Maybe not.
letting go of ego, letting go of fear, letting go of desire to control, all of that. And I started meditating and I started journaling after meditation. And I was writing, one day I was just writing words down that came to me. And then I went back and later on and I was reading the words and I'm like, wow, this is pretty profound. These words really encompass my NDE. And I decided I was going to start practicing these words. And it's things like loving, willingness, faithfulness, patience, purpose, spirituality, I thought, I want to live these words. I'm going to live them. I'm going to embody them. And I started doing it. And also using the law of attraction, monitoring how I felt about things, how I chose to think about things. And
so, what I would love to ask Krista is did you believe in the power of attraction and all this other kind of, new age umbrella terms that are out there before you had an NDE. If I was a betting man, I would say that chances are that she did not, given her career path. Could be wrong, but if I had to guess, she did not. So again, this kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier, how she came back to Earth after her NDE and fell into the rabbit hole of propaganda that the Matrix has ready and waiting for her through the near-death experiencer industry, through the New Age industry. And so make of it what you will, but you know, it can't be just thrown away as if it's nothing, because it's we see it over and over and over and over again. The buzzwords always come out. And the question always remains is like, did you feel that way, or did you have an education in those types of things before? And most of the time, I would say, based on the experiencer giving their testimony, there's a very high likelihood that they didn't. Of course, there's exceptions in anything, but most of the time, no.
Using the law of attraction, monitoring how I felt about things, how I chose to think about things, and the way I conducted myself in the world. And I noticed that the people around me began to change. And I noticed it most profoundly in the emergency room where I worked. And the chaos that is the ER, a busy ER, became less chaotic. And the people I was interacting with on a daily basis became less difficult. And, the notoriously grumpy surgeon was no longer grumpy when I called him and asked him to come in. Things like that. My life just got easier and better, and I felt good, and my health improved, and I just was amazed at the transformation. And so that's when I felt the sort of calling to write it down in a book. And
so, yeah, I mean, it can't be stated enough. I'll add one more thing, kind of to the self-help section of this stream today, is, how you perceive things and how you train your mind, train our minds, is really important. And those who are kind of having a rough go at it, affirmations are so helpful. They really are. Creating your own affirmations. There was an email I received, I don't know, a month or so back, and I'm sorry, anyone who sent emails, I am so backed up in emails. Life has just been kicking me in the ass lately, and if you're listening out there, whoever sent the affirmation email, the things like that, I'll get back to you. It just might take a little time. But anyways, affirmations are so key. These are little small hints, like I was talking about with the mindfulness alarm. Little small things that can help you along the way. Either writing your own affirmations, recording them, and loading them up on your phone or into your computer or whatever the case may be. Or going to channels that have affirmations that you connect with, that are sovereign based, or at least about changing your state of mind to a more happy individual. It makes things easier. It really does. I promise you. I do affirmations in the shower fairly regularly, and I swear by them. I do. One channel that I'll throw out there is Jason Stevenson. Now, he's a big channel. Look, he's got, I don't know, million subscribers, few million. I don't remember. I haven't checked in a long time. But anyways, there's some great tracks on there. There's also some BS that you're not going to connect with. But the point is find someone out there that can help you or create your own. Okay. So I'm throwing a shout out to Jason's channel, but at the same time, if it doesn't connect with you and there's a lot of love and light stuff out there, then create your own. You know, find a good backtrack, you know, write out a script and record it yourself and then upload it. And spend 15, 20 minutes in the shower repeating those back in the morning, or throwing on your headphones and laying down and repeating them, not just in your head, but verbally, both. You know, like for me personally, I like how this could be for anyone who wants to create something. This is why I like Jason's content, or at least the ones that I've listened to that connect with me, is, you know, he'll have a script and he'll say 1 or 2 sentences, affirmations, and then pause. And what I will do is I will think at what those words are, and then I'll verbalize those words. And he'll give me enough time in between the ones that I'm saying and the next round that it'll help me. So, and enough time to process it. It's not sped up, but it's also not, you know, super slow. So, you know, find what works for you. You know, daily affirmations, my friends. I swear by it. I swear by it. You know, the world could be burning up around you, outside your door, but you'll be able to deal with things better. You know, that's the best thing I can say. Does that mean you should fall down the whole new age rabbit hole and all that stuff? No, it just means like, hey, these are tools that work for me. These are tools that work for other individuals, and maybe they'll help you. And if they don't work for you, then create your own. That's all. So anyways, you know, do you, my friends. Find what works for you. That's all that matters in the end.
And I didn't want to be cliche and write a book, you know, about my experience. I was like, well, this is a part of sharing. I had to really remove my ego from that. So I put my experience in the book and made it, you know, the first couple chapters, and then I dove into the 12 principles and self-published it on Amazon. And it caught the attention of ultimately of Morgan Freeman's research person for his show Story of God.
Now, I'm sorry. This has to be pointed out. I know I'm pausing it again, but this has to be pointed out. Remember, she has an NDE. She's in the medical field. She comes back. There's a memory wipe. She comes, you know, and she doesn't even remember being human. And then she's back here. And no offense again to Krista, if you're listening to this, my friend. It's, you know, it's just doesn't surprise me that these types of things line up. It's like, oh, Krista comes back. She works through her thing, works through her experience, gets better, moves along. And then all of a sudden, the mainstream media comes flying out, ready to open their arms to her. Like, to Krista, it's like she's not thinking in those terms that it could all be a setup, but the way I look at it is it's not surprising, right? I mean, it's Morgan Freeman, for Christ's sake. You know, the mainstream on a platter, just ready to go. And it caught the attention of ultimately of Morgan Freeman's research person for his show Story of God. And they reached out to me and had my daughter and I on their show, the second season. And so that was an amazing experience. And had I not written that down, written my experience down, written about the 12 principles, that most likely wouldn't have happened. And so it was a really cool thing to come out of all of it. But it's just about walking through
fear and diminishing ego and sharing love. That's it.
You talk about sharing love. What is the best way to do so?
Well, first with yourself, being loving and kind in your own mind to yourself, nourishing our bodies. Our bodies are a temple of love, of, if we want to call it, God. And they deserve to be nourished and cherished and taken care of. So, simply focusing on that alone, you cannot help but share that with the world, because we are electromagnetic beings and we pick up on each other's electromagnetic energies. It's unless we have barriers, literal barriers, physical barriers between us, it's literally impossible not to. So I have a personal responsibility first to myself to make this body temple as healthy as it can be. And then my next responsibility is to share that with others. And, I've witnessed healing take place just with the touch of a hand on someone. I've felt and watched their eyes change, their face soften, their body relax, and basically physically transform in front of me. And we have that power for one another and to influence each other in that way. And that's really and if that's all we do, then we've done enough. We've done our job.
How much time had passed?
Oh, we've done enough, all right, my friends. We've done enough. Yes, this lifetime and however many lifetimes before has been quite a bit much. So we are over the second hour, and it is time to take a short break. Probably only be about 5 minutes, but there's a little bit more to come. Probably got about another half hour at most. So also wanted to let y'all know that Dan from Overwatch Project on Odysee is going to be doing an Odysee exclusive. So be sure to check out Dan's upload, or at least subscribe to him over on Odysee. Again, that's Overwatch Project. It's all together, and his website is overwatchproject.com. I also highly recommend checking out Wayne Bush's website at trickedbythelight.com. That's trickedbythelight.com. And we'll see each other here in about 5-6 minutes tops. So hang in there, my friends, and it's been fun. Hope you're enjoying this very revealing NDE. Thank you. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I want to welcome Conscious Soul to the chat. Good to see you, my friend. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only. Okay, so we're going to hop back into the last segment of the evening. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Hope you found some value so far in the stream tonight. And just before we go into it, even though I just said we're going to hop back into it, there are memberships if you'd like to join the channel and get some extra content each month. They're available on Odysee and YouTube. And with Odysee, there may be some additional content that can't be discussed here on YouTube. So, but in general, almost everything's going to be even between both platforms. It's just, I'm kind of like strangleholded with certain topics on YouTube, especially with something like breakthrough trip reports and schizophrenia experiences and a number of other things. But to date, both memberships are equal. They've got the same exact amount of videos, and with Odysee, I'm still uploading some, but there's nothing exclusive to either at the moment. But this year there will be some that come out a little bit here and there, so feel free to join us over there if you'd like. It's, you know, I wish, you know, there was so many videos I had to remove because of how the terms of service change on YouTube, and there's nothing I can do, right? I'm not gonna have the whole channel deleted and all this information not available on the biggest platform in the world, you know, just to say a few extra things. I wish, you know, some get away with it, but they're commonly referred to as shills. Anyways, I have an Instagram, I have a Twitter where I send out notifications at least about an hour in advance. So feel free to sign up to those if you'd like notifications. And with the memberships on both Odysee and YouTube, you can also get access to occasional early access videos and the Discord and the monthly members live streams, as well as a backlog of videos too. And I have a Twitch where I do Truth in Gaming. It's very casual with light commentary. So if you're expecting some professional gaming channel, trust me, I'm not for you. It's just, I play games that drop truth bombs and do some light commentary. It's very chill, nothing special, but feel free to join me over there. And I have a D Live. And of course, I just mentioned Odysee. I have a Rumble. So yeah. Feel free to check those out. If you're interested in donating to the channel, I have Stream Elements and Stripe. Your support is always appreciated, but never expected, ever. But it does help. For instance, you know what? I'm going to show you. And there's going to be some major upgrades coming to the channel. And you know what? This is part of what your money's gone to. Like, I just got this Rodecaster Pro 2. So this is me investing in the channel with supporters' money. $700 for this. I also ordered a Shure mic, the SB, I don't know, like the most popular mic out there that a lot of podcasters use. That was about $400, and that should be coming soon. There's some other added things. At the moment, I'm not using the microphone. I'm not using the Rodecaster, but those should be set up in the next couple weeks. So there'll be a lot of improvements. Levels will be nice and even consistently. I don't have to put as much work in, and there'll be the channel overall will be a much higher quality. So I think you'll find some value in that. And again, I appreciate anyone who helps support the channel, but it's never ever expected, but always appreciated. And with Stripe and Stream Elements, they take very little. They take maybe anywhere between 5 and 6%, somewhere around there, 3 to 6%, depending on the platform. But YouTube takes 30. Odyssee's pretty good. They take about, I think, 7 or 8%. But YouTube is the killer, right? It takes 30% of any donation put here. But that doesn't mean I'm not appreciative. But again, if you're interested in supporting the channel, getting a little extra content each month, feel free to join the memberships or make a one-time or monthly donation. So thank you again to each and every one of you out there who does support the channel. And even, you know, watching the ads helps. You know, if there's something that may interest you, it does help the channel and helps get the channel into more of YouTube, right? It gets into the suggestion box. If there's something maybe that pops up that interests you, feel free to check it out. And it may help get the information out there, and that costs nothing. So, all right. We'll move along. And one last thing, there is a channel email list, so feel free to join the email list. That's in the description tab of every video, and it's a good way for us to stay in touch just in case something should ever happen here. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell for all notifications. If you hit personalized or the bell is like half lit, then chances are you're not going to get a notification. It's just the way things work, right? It's sad, but it is what it is. So we're going to move along here, and thank you for kind of hearing the spiel of the evening.
Influence each other in that way. And that's really and if that's all we do, then we've done enough. We've done our job.
How much time had passed after your NDE until you had the dream and you remembered it?
It was months. I've looked back at journals because I don't exactly recall. I've looked back at journals and you know, initially it felt like several weeks. But when I read my journals, I realized it was about 3 or 4 months later. And I, you know, I was writing about it where before I was saying I'm so different. Like, I know I'm different and I don't know how to put my finger on it, but there's something so different about me. And I wish I knew what it was. And I just feel, you know, like I'm missing a piece of myself. And yeah. And then I found an entry where I had my whole experience, and I have a memory of calling my husband and my ex-husband in the morning I woke up and telling him about it. Like, I woke up and I was like yelling for him, and he came in and he listened, and I told him the whole thing, and he listened very intently, and he said, "We're just so glad you're here." And I'm like, yeah, but what do I do now? You know? Yeah, that's where the searching began. And actually,
Interesting, right? Because she says, but what do I do now? And then the matrix programming from her experience settled in at some point, and she, you know, I hate to say it, but she fulfilled what the matrix wanted her to do. I'm sorry. That's just the interpretation based on her testimony. It has nothing to do with me or anyone else. It's just that she did as she was told.
yeah, that's where the searching began. And actually, I reached out to Jeff Long, and he emailed me and he said, "Pay attention to your dreams." And that was after I had the recall of it. And I didn't even want to tell him in the email that I had the recall. I said, "I think maybe something happened when I coded." And when he replied with that, "Pay attention to your dreams," it validated me. It was exactly what I needed.
Did your ex-husband acknowledge your experience as well as the new you?
He acknowledged my experience. He did not understand the new me so much. And
which is extremely common, right? Husbands and wives break up constantly after one of them may have a near-death experience. I mean, it's consistent. I would love to know a data point on that because it's got to be high. It's got to be 80%. At least. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but it's right around there. Anyone who has an NDE and comes back, they are going to break up, almost guaranteed, with the individual that they were with prior to the experience.
Understand the new me so much. And I didn't have the support that I really needed it for me. I really needed it. So I would push my experience to the back of my mind. I was like, well, it was just for me. It wasn't for anybody else. And I don't know how to share this. People don't understand, really. They don't really understand. So
she hid herself. She hid herself for a period of time until she felt comfortable to kind of break free and push forward. But you know what was a catalyst for that? I'm sorry. There's no doubt in my mind that a catalyst for that, I mean, she reached out to Jeffrey Long, right? I mean, there's a catalyst for all this stuff, and it may not happen the first year. It may not happen the second year or the third year, but it's going to happen at some point where they can't deny what happened to them, and memories are either already there or they come rushing in, or something is filled in between the gaps, and they will break up with someone, or they will go on their own path and do something differently.
I'll just kind of keep it to myself, and that'll be okay. I'll live my life. But I couldn't continue to do it anymore.
After you came back, you had some memory loss due to the, lack of oxygen in your brain, and you felt different. And and I guess you were different, actually. And then you had the dream of the NDE experience. Have you ever re-experienced the old self?
Great question.
Yes, in moments of ego. Yeah. I was very driven, very focused, very black and white. Well, there were gray areas, but mostly black and white. I was very type A, and I loved people. I loved connecting to people. I loved helping people. It was this, for 10 years, it was this tug of war between the old Krista, the new Krista, the old Krista, the new Krista. And I couldn't seem to find a bridge to sort of connect the two. And that's, it finally came to a head, and I had no choice, and I'm so grateful.
In your notes, does it say that you were dead for 8 minutes?
Yeah, they lost my pulse at 9:18 in the morning on a Monday morning, and it came back at 9:26.
Monday morning, time to go to work, Krista.
What do you think inspires you about your experience?
Oh, well, it's that feeling of the love. That's what inspires me, because I want to feel that.
The love inspires me. I want to feel that. I mean, Krista has been taken for the biggest ride, and no offense to Krista whatsoever, but this is what a lot of NDEers will say in their own way. They're not going to say it point blank like Krista did, but the love it's an addiction. It's an attachment. The love bomb is serious business. It's not a joke. And, you know, once you come in the grips of it, it's like, whoa. You can see how easily manipulated we can be. I mean, heck, we're all living proof that we've fallen for it. It's a love bomb, euphoria bomb, whatever, you know, attachments, propaganda, mind control, on and on, all these different things that happen. The flaws of the human body and how we're capable of being or falling into different types of programming. It goes on and on and on. And the Matrix is all there, ready and waiting for us to fall right back into it, lifetime after lifetime. So when are we going to stand up and say, no, enough is enough? I'm not going to fall for your BS. That's all it takes. Intention is everything. Denying consent is everything. Don't interact with these things. Shield yourself. Take the path of sovereignty and liberation and just see what happens. It can't hurt. So for those that are on the fence or those that are religious or whatever the case may be, you know, hey, at some point along your path, and if you feel the need to come back here or tango with the light and think it's God and Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha and your loved ones all wrapped into one, go for it. But why take the chance when you first leave here? That's what I don't understand. It's like there's so many individuals who will come at me and like, that's fine. I can handle it, but why just blindly trust? Why have blind faith in any of this stuff as being legitimate when you're in the dumpster fire right now? You're in it. We're all in it. We see it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And all we seem to see over and over and over again are individuals who make excuses, groups who make excuses, politicians that make excuses, corporations that make excuses. It just doesn't end. And it doesn't matter what time period, epoch you grow up in, it's always been there. For as far back as we have records for, this type of BS has been going on non-stop. It's just a different perception of the time period that you grew up in. But it's the same playbook. Hasn't stopped, hasn't ended. It's always happening. So one has to ask themselves, when does it end? Does all it take is for someone to stand up for themselves and not interact and not give this stuff the energy, the attention, the intention that it wants? That really does seem to be that everything boils down to. Honestly, it seems very blatant. But until individually we can see through that, and that we need to take that path of individuality and not interact with these things, it seems all but certain that reincarnation, or at least at a minimum, being a cog in the wheel of the Matrix, is going to happen. You don't want to fall for this stuff. You don't. None of us do, right? I mean, anyone. I mean, there are some, the weird thing is there are some individuals out there that love this place. I've met them, and it's freaky. I'm sure many of you have met them too. They're out there, trust me. But I would say like there's the good majority of individuals, like if you, regardless of whether they believe in reincarnation or not, if you go out in there and quiz individuals, like, hey, if you had a chance to come back and be reincarnated, most individuals will say no. I'm sorry. I mean, like that's what I see. Now, I'd love to do like a nationwide poll or a realm-wide poll and get some more firm numbers on that. But then you got to ask yourself, it's like, where does the NPC thing come into play, right? Is that what's going on? Maybe. Who knows? All right, we'll move along. We're getting close to the end, my friends.
Because I want to feel that. You know, so many people who have NDEs, they want to go back, or they didn't want to come back. Well, for me, I didn't know what this was. I had no memory of being human. And while I know going back would be phenomenal, I want to be here. I want to share that profound love with the people that I meet, the people I haven't met. You know, I know that us talking and just talking, sharing about this is affecting everything. It's creating an energetic current of high vibrational positivity that's affecting everyone in the world, even though I can't see it.
You mentioned about our energy states earlier. Do you think it's a good idea to just only consume things on television that are like comedies and things that make you happy?
That's a really good question. You know, there's a writer that one of the things I did when I was processing my experience and trying to be who I am. I read a book by an author called Prentice Mulford, and he wrote Thoughts Are Things. He wrote it in the 1800s, and he writes about that very thing, the exposure. If you want to feel good and have good health, he suggested not to expose yourself to things that disturb your spirit in any way. And that got me really thinking about that, and you know, feeling it through, and then monitoring myself when I did watch the news or watch movies that were violent and things like that.
See, like this, in my opinion, just listen to what she's saying. I'm sorry, I'm going to back it up a little bit, but this seems like her true essence kind of bleeding out and laying it on the floor for all of us to see. I really like the bulk of this response. Oops.
And then monitoring myself when I did watch the news or watch movies that were violent and things like that. Well, I was sensitive to that to begin with. I would feel a lot watching a film, along with my ex-husband, and I would just remove myself because it didn't feel good.
So where's the love in that? Where's the love, right?
I personally, I don't pay very close attention to the news. I know the gist of what's going on in the world from, you know, what I hear others talking about, or what I kind of glean when I pull up my homepage on my computer, but which I do keep as a news. I kind of glance at it, but I don't.
That's your first problem. Don't glance at it.
Don't delve into it. I don't get too bogged down in it, because
the headlines are designed to extract Loosh. I mean, really, you know, shut off. I mean, I'm going to just chat a little bit about this, but one of the ways you can prevent this from occurring is, I mean, for instance, like your computer, right? I don't know about Apple's, but I know with Windows, if you hit the bottom left and and you have it set up in a certain way, or actually it's not even set up in a certain way, it's forced on you when you get a computer. The news headlines and all that stuff will pop up, right? You can shut that off. Shut it all off. And if you're on YouTube or whatever platform you're watching videos on, especially with YouTube, YouTube will try to jam it down your throat. Hit do not recommend. Hit do not recommend, especially in the recommendations form. Or recommendations tab, right? They will pop up, or below, like if you're watching a video and you scroll below. Now, sometimes they like to change these things. They may be there, they may not be there, like the do not recommend button I'm talking about. Like that's your biggest ally. But I'm telling you, if you spend a few months going through that and hitting do not recommend channel, do not recommend channel, do not recommend channel, just keep doing it. Eventually, you'll weed out almost all of it. You're not going to, there's going to be a tiny percentage that'll sneak in and grab your attention. But you know what? That do not recommend feature is there for a reason. That's our friend. Don't fall into the quote unquote, I hate to say this, but low vibrational propaganda that's out there, the mind control. Don't let it suck you in. If it's not there in the first place, it can't do anything to you. But if you see, train derails in Ohio or Pennsylvania and spills the chemicals and that they're burning the chemicals, and yes, I heard about that because it's a major thing, right? There are some events that it's almost impossible to not hear about. But in the long run, if you keep doing the do not recommend channel, just keep doing it. In the long run, you're not going to get much, if any, content that is looshy. That's just the way it is. I've been doing this for 4, 5, 6 years now. Yeah, about 6 years. And I'm telling you, my feed does not get mainstream anything, barely anything. The only channel I'm subscribed to that kind of keeps me semi up to date on what's going on, and yeah, he's a establishment pawn, is Jimmy Dore. Right, as far as the U.S. goes, right? I mean, I really don't care what's going on out there, but occasionally I'll watch one of his videos. But that's it. I mean, I try not to allow myself to fall into the perpetual tunnel of propaganda and mind control. Because whether it's positive or negative, all that information is there to get you to react, to get you to give away Loosh. And, it doesn't mean you don't care about individuals who may be affected in those areas and what have you. It's just a matter of protecting yourself, right? If you don't know it exists, you're in your own, let's say, bubble in whatever state or country you reside in, then that's a good thing, right? Like the whole war with Ukraine and all that, I don't know what is going on over there. I don't care. I mean, it's not like I don't have compassion and empathy for what's going on, and however real that may be, intent. But the issue is how am I going to let that affect my day-to-day life? I'm not. I refuse. And removing yourself from the propaganda and from the mind control is a huge step. If you don't see it, what is the term? Out of sight, out of mind. You're not even allowing it to enter your being, your circle, your essence, whatever you want to call it. You're not allowing it to even enter yourself. But if you continue to allow, this is an interesting thing. Like when I started to do not recommend channel for all sorts of mainstream, regardless of what it was, it's like, all of a sudden Fox in Kansas City would pop up, or CBS in Montana would pop up. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if there's a major event, you can go through ahead of time and remove yourself from all those things and do not recommend. You could spend months. I've been doing this for years. You could spend months. But if there is a major event like the whole train thing in Ohio, there are going to be little Joe Schmo channels, but they're mainstream, like outlets for CBS, ABC, Fox, whatever the case may be, at least here in the States. They're going to pop up and somehow creep their way in. And all you got to do is just keep hitting do not recommend. But I find it interesting that, think about it, we have all these states, at least in the US, and then you have all these countries and cities and all that stuff, and they have all their news outlets. And, you know, it takes some work. You got to be dedicated to not being brainwashed and Looshified. I mean, really. But it can be done. And your life overall for the year by year will be better for it. I promise you. If the headline doesn't exist on your screen, then it can't affect you. It can't garner that reaction out of you, whether good or bad. And most of the time, it's bad. It's trying to extract that high concentrated loosh out of you. So make it what you will, but I'm telling you, my friends, it's very good advice. It really is. Step away from all the BS. What really affects you at the end of the day? Where you are. Is there, I mean, you know, it's not like you don't care, but is there a train derailing, you know, in your backyard? Is there a train blowing up and spitting toxic fumes out your backyard? No, it's not. And if anything, this realm proves over and over again is that no matter how much you care about an issue, no matter how much you have empathy and compassion for individuals that are affected in those areas, in the end, you're in your own little area, day by day, hour by hour, year by year, doing your thing. And unless you allow it into your world, it cannot affect you. If you don't know it exists, if it's not impacting you outside your back door or in your city or in your town, and if it's a major thing, like for instance, I dealt with the hurricane last October. Did you guys deal with the hurricane? Some of you did. But in reality, yeah, it sucked. And I deleted those videos, by the way, because, you know, it's like, hey, this shit's happening. But in the end, like, I don't want to bring you guys down. I don't. That's just a small example of it. Do your thing, you know, but don't let these looshy little activities, these looshy little propaganda, mind control activities, or videos or websites or whatever the case may be, sneak into you. There is always a way to at least minimize how much comes through, if not fully eradicate it. So I'll step off the soapbox.
Glance at it, but I don't delve into it. I don't get too bogged down in it, because so much of it is for the benefit of, you know, getting a rise in people, affecting us emotionally.
Loosh. She's describing Loosh.
Is for the benefit of, you know,
the parasites,
getting a rise in people, affecting us emotionally. I took a class in college, and it was about how to interpret the media critically. And we literally analyzed newscasts from, you know, how many minutes each channel spent on a specific story, and what pictures they had in the background, and the words that they used during the newscast. You know, we picked it apart. This was when I was 19 years old. So I always look at the news critically, but if there is negativity that's being, you know, broadcast to the world, then I choose not to be a part of it. It doesn't mean I don't care, because I care very much. But if it disturbs my peace, then it's not worth it to me to sit there and absorb it just to be what we call informed, because a lot of it too is it has bias inherent in it. So, you know, I like to feel good, and I'll seek out things that help me if I'm struggling in some way to feel good. And if I'm watching something that, or listening to something that doesn't feel good, I'll change it, turn it off, or put on something else. Yeah.
Do you fear death at all?
No. No.
Should anybody fear it?
No. For me, it was as what's the word? As smooth a transition as breathing in and breathing out. It was completely seamless transition. Woody Allen has his line. I've heard him say, I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens. And I think that's the thing, and Joseph Campbell, as I've quoted him before, saying, I think he's quoting somebody else, when the angel of death is upon us, it's terrifying, but when it arrives, it's bliss. And it truly, truly is. It's a natural process, completely natural, and inevitable. And we don't have to rush it, but we can if we want to. We have free will. We have free will here and there. Won't change a thing.
Do you believe in reincarnation? And if so, why do we keep coming back over and over again?
Boom,
I
Jeff.
do believe in reincarnation. I've had the recall of past lives myself, and it is for our energetic, spiritual growth.
I mean, incredible, right? She even uses the term, it's for our energetic and spiritual growth. Energetic, yeah. Energetic, like she was, targeted for her energy. Like we are all targeted for our energy and creator being abilities. It goes on and on and on. If you come here, like all of us have come here, lifetime after lifetime, and have no memory of what we've done, where we've come from, why we're here, where we're going, and it continues to happen over and over and over again, what can you possibly learn from that experience? I am so sick of the narrative that this is for spiritual growth, that there's something to learn here. The only thing to learn is that you're a sovereign being, sovereign creator being, capable of amazing things and capable of getting yourself out of this situation. That's the only lesson, period. But does that mean that you should be coming back here? There is nothing to, if we're this, and in how many NDE years will say this, they'll say this constantly. Oh, we're all creator beings. We all have amazing abilities. It's all amazing on the other side. But yet we got to come to Earth to learn and grow. Are you kidding me? And then your memory wiped lifetime after lifetime. It is the most nonsensical thing. The memory wipe is the nail in the coffin, my friends. It's the nail in the coffin. And nobody can ever justify it. I'm sorry. There's been many people who have come and left comments or have talked about reincarnation, what the purpose is, on so many other channels across the internet and long before the internet. All the ancient texts, everything. There's always this rationale that there is this growth period and that you need to come back here to fulfill your spiritual purpose and grow and learn from your mistakes. But if you come here, again, lifetime after lifetime, without those memories and how to better yourself, then it's a moot point. It's a completely moot point and is unacceptable. This is how the system thrives. If it didn't have the memory wipe, if it didn't have all the little tricks in its bag, so to say, to unleash on all of us, no one would be here. No one. No one. If you came here, if I came here, if we all came here for just the experience as a one-off and could theoretically, grow and learn off of the experience of not being immortal or eternal, I should say, then fine. But it's an insult to our intelligence. It really is. It's an insult. And yet the narrative is out there over and over and over again that this is for learning and growth. It's completely ridiculous. Ridiculous. How can you learn and grow and better yourself if you're in a realm, you're born into a realm, and you don't have any memory of what you need to improve on? Or let alone have a memory at all about where the frick you came from before you got here. That's why so many people will continue to say that the light is God, the light is Jesus, the light is this, and blah, 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 and that, and all the loved ones and the attachments. All this stuff is a big scam. It's a big hoax. And the more that realize it, the better. But it's all right in front of our faces. The only solution is to do your own research and see it for yourself. And some can even explore outside the body and find out some information for themselves. But in the end, data is what shows this. The data patterns are there. They're there. And then you add to it with your life experience and just your surroundings and about what's going on in the rest of the realm as far as suffering goes, and just general flat out fuckery, then it's easy to see. But if cognitive dissonance rolls in denial, and there's a whole industry behind certain sects of the realm to try and prop up everything as legitimate, well, the narrative keeps being spun and spun and spun and repeated and repeated and repeated until you believe it. Ask yourself, why is humanity so easily prone to mind control? Why is, think about it, the animal kingdom, right? Most, if not all, animals, if they were left without their mother or their father or someone to care about them, they could most of the time theoretically survive. With humans, that's not necessarily the case. If you're born tomorrow and were left in, let's just say, an apartment or a house, chances of you surviving are slim to none. The animal kingdom is a little different. There's a much higher chance that you'll survive. Anyways, I don't know why I was saying that, but and then of course we can go down the route of the monetary system and the parasitic monetary system and the slave wage system, and we can go on and on about all this stuff. But some of you connect with this, some of you won't. But what can we do except look out for ourselves as individuals? There's no reason to get into fights in the comment section and try to explain away everything. It's a lost cause. There's no reason to respond to videos of creepy stalker types. It's just not worth our time. You just got to do what you got to do for yourself, and you got to know that your essence and your research will take you a certain path and prove it to you that the individual journey is where it's all at. The sovereign journey, the liberated journey, is really where the answers lie. And that's why I can't get behind any other way of exiting at the time of natural death. Perhaps there are some other things. I don't know. But until that's proven through my own actions outside of the body, Screw that. I want nothing to do with it. All right, I'll continue. We're almost done.
And it is for our energetic, spiritual growth, expansion. So the universe is expanding because we are expanding.
Oh yeah, there's so much expansion
Not just
going
us,
on.
but everything is. But to answer your question, we're expanding.
No, we're not expanding. We're not expanding. We're just not. Humanity is getting dumber and dumber by the second. I'm sorry.
And until we learn the lessons, we call them lessons, they're energetic shifts, they're states of being, until we get to the state of being that we decided we were going to get to when we came into the body, then we'll stick around. We can always choose to change the plan. We have that free will, and there is no right and there's no wrong. That's my understanding.
You said that the universe is expanding and we are expanding. Could we say then that we are the universe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And that's what, for me, the particles were there for me as Krista in this 3D body to recognize when I came back and had the recall of my experience, to be able to connect the physics with the multidimensional, experience of being. Yeah.
So you mentioned your book earlier, and it's called I Died and Learned How to Live. Where can we get it?
It is on Amazon. And that's the only place that I have it right now. I self-published, and so it's available there for download, or you can order hard copies if you want.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you okay with that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have a blog, KristaGorman.net. And they can also email me at 12principles@gmail.com.
Krista, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Oh my gosh. One last positive message. Have fun. This is about experiencing joy, this life. Come to a place, if you can, to where you can actually, look around you and be content and be happy with where you are. Do whatever it takes to get there, because it's so worth it.
Thank you for that message. And Krista, thank you again for being my guest. I really appreciate you, and I wish you a great rest of your day.
So that was the Jeff Mara podcast interviewing Krista. Feel free to check out Jeff's channel. He does, for your own research, he does a lot of great interviews from experiencers, and at some point I will be on there as well. I've had a couple invites and just been bogged down with Matrix BS, but at some point I'll let you guys know when I hop on there. But I watch regularly. He's got a lot of great content, so please check out his channel to further your own research along the way here. And I thought she ended it out great, right? It's do your thing. Don't let the world and the conditions surrounding the world dictate your day-to-day life. Kind of like we were talking about earlier, right? If you don't let the recommended feed or the news feed, whatever the case may be, if you're getting bombarded, shut off notifications. Even with YouTube, right? I don't really have notifications set for much of anything, except for those that I want to hear and listen from. Customize everything. and set it up in a way where you're not being bombarded day after day, hour after hour with endless notifications. I mean, emails, I mean, social media, all this stuff. You know, you got to draw the line somewhere and find what works for you. Remember, customize your own experience so that you can deal with your day-to-day. So things aren't as crazy or as demanding of your attention, or attention, I should say. Because if you don't know things are happening, if you don't know the world is spinning down a vortex of insanity, can't bother you. And if shit does hit the fan, and I think it may, then we'll all deal with it when it comes, right? But until that moment does arrive, do what's best for you. And, you know, like we talked about earlier in the stream about setting a mindfulness alarm and affirmations and meditation and working on astral projection, lucid dreaming, all that stuff can help. And I want to give a big shout out to The Vegan Skeptic. He's put out a great ebook that is extremely detailed, and I'm going to leave that in the comment section after the stream, and eventually I'll get to the setting up the, what do you call it, the sorry, having a mind fire here. Oh yeah, the timestamps, the chapters, for easier viewing for anyone who may have come in late or is watching the replay. So that'll be a little easier navigation throughout the stream. I try to do that every single video. It just takes about 24 to 72 hours for me to get that set up and go through the video. But I hope you found some value in the channel tonight. And please consider hitting the like button on whatever platform you're watching, whether it's Twitch or Odysee or Rumble or YouTube. It does help get the channel into more feeds and spread this information. And the message is always the same. Non-interference, which is shielding, sovereignty, liberation, creating your own realm so that at least we all have our own individual, quote unquote, time to look out for ourselves and not fall into the illusion. So I think it's all there, clear as day to see. And once these experiencers start interacting with the Matrix and the entities involving themselves within the Matrix, that's when all hell breaks loose. It's shown over and over and over again. So non-interference is step one. It really is. And hey, once you find yourself, once you realize what you're capable of, whether it's shown on this channel or through experiences or through your own means and methods like we were talking about earlier, all those different things, the answer is always the same. It's like, stick up for yourself, stand your ground, don't interact. Don't interact. They bank on us falling for the illusions. So, enough of the illusions. I look forward to seeing y'all again soon, and hope you have a good week ahead. Don't work too hard, all right? And probably see each other next weekend. Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, something like that. And, one last thing. The monthly members live stream is now scheduled for March 26th. That's a Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If the time does change, I'll let you know. But as of now, we always meet the last Sunday of every month. So that'll be Sunday, March 26th, 2023 at 7 p.m. See you soon. And again, don't work too hard. Take care of yourselves, and please hit the like button on the way out.